of whoever, and it's a real combination. But we've had those. We've had all kinds of permutations. I said this yesterday. Why is Babe Ruth remembered? We're talking about conventional wisdom, not for his strikeouts, but he's remembered for his home runs. Heavier than air, flying machines are impossible. We're talking beyond common sense, remember? Okay, that's what the Lord Kelvin said in 1895.
Might be impossible to have flying machines which are lighter than air.
Flying, then...
Yeah.
Robert Milken, Nobel Prize, Physics. There is no likelihood we can ever tap the power of the atom. 1920. Sensible and responsible women do not want to vote. President of the United States, Grover Cleveland, 1905. Everything that can be invented has been invented. Charles Jewell, Director of U.S. Patents, 1899. But what is it good for? Engineer at the Advanced Computing Systems Division of IBM, 1968, commenting on the microchip.
That's still the question.
Huh?
Still Gates.
Computers in the future may weigh no more than 1.5 tons. Popular Mechanics forecasting the relentless march of service, 1949. Okay? Does your computer look like this? In 1954, Popular Mechanics ran the picture with a caption below speculating that the home computer would look like 50 years later in 2004. Scientists from Rand Corporation have created this model to illustrate how a home computer could look in the year 2004. However, the technology will not be economically feasible for the average home. Also, the scientists admit that the computer will require not yet invented technology to actually work, but 50 years from now, scientists expect to solve these problems. Teletype interface and the Fortran language. With teletype interface and Fortran. That's what I learned in college, Fortran. I hear it's coming back. Is Fortran coming back?
No.
Okay. The computer will be easy to use.
It's still taught.
Yeah? Okay. Now, how wrong can we fucking be? Now, nobody have a computer. Well, I have one. I probably have this whole room like a computer. But I mean, and I have a little diploma guys, making things work for me. But I mean, I've been in deals that we've been that wrong. And it hasn't taken us 50 years to figure it out. It took us about 10 months. But I've been in deals, that's why I say don't ever underestimate how wrong you can be. I think there is a world market for maybe 5 companies. This is Tom Watson Sr. about computer companies. 1943. The concept is interesting and well-founded, but in order to earn better than a C, the idea must be feasible. This is a Yale University management professor in response to Fred Smith's paper proposing reliable overnight delivery service. Smith went on to found FedEx. Now, I happen to know a little bit about FedEx. In the late 70s, early 70s, excuse me, he came up with this idea about, just as it says here, when he left Yale with his MBA. And at the time he was living in Memphis, Tennessee. He convinced a venture capital firm in New York City to give them $55 million. And that's how they started FedEx. And in his presentation to the venture capital firm, private equity firm, he's drawing on, and they said, why Memphis, Tennessee? Everybody know where Memphis, Tennessee is? Down in the kind of southeastern part of the United States, a little up from the Gulf of Mexico. And he says, well, it's the Gulf Stream winds. The theory was they could clear all the Federal Reserve banks overnight. There's 11 or 12 Federal Reserve banks. They collect the money from the commercial banks in the United States. He said they could clear them overnight. So they could clear them from New York, Chicago, Boston, San Francisco, Dallas, Atlanta, and someplace else. Okay, because the trade winds, we take off in the nighttime and we go up here where the winds are behind us, and then when the winds are behind us here, we're saving on petrol, yada, yada, yada. So he convinces these idiots, fucking private equity guys, this is all bullshit. The reason why they're in Memphis is because they have no fucking money to be anyplace else. Because the overhead's cheap, there's a lot of out-of-work engineers, da-da-da. Okay, So they go through the 55 million like shit through a goose. They spend it in a matter of weeks. They've got 11 planes, 12 planes. The first packages that were on the first plane, the first FedEx packages, had 11 packages. 11. 7 packages were test packages from people's parents. They had 4 fucking packages. $55 million. Sounds like an impaler deal. Okay? One of his strip clubs. Okay? And then the chief engineer, the chief guy in charge of operations and keeping the planes going, didn't take much to keep 11 planes going. Okay? He came up and he says they're sitting around a table, and they hired the guy that was the former head of marketing for Kentucky Fried Chicken, KFC. Why? Because he lived in Memphis. Okay? It's kind of like Kaiserslautern. We got all these guys from Kaiserslautern because we're here. Okay? So they're having a meeting, and the guy from maintenance says, we're running out of money. We don't have enough grease for the wheels and this and that. And so as he's walking out, the marketing guy, who I used to be in business with, the reason I know the story, tells the maintenance guy, whatever his name was, "Hey, Harry, we're trying to come up with a slogan. What do you think?" He walks to the door, he goes out the door, and then he comes back in and he says, "What about, and what's Federal Express's, if you absolutely need it what do they say? If you absolutely need it overnight, Federal Express." He came up with that slogan. They spent the last $2.5 million on an advertising campaign. It didn't click. They had no money to make payroll. Fred Smith took the last $230,000 he had, flew to Las Vegas, played blackjack with the $230,000, won enough payroll. They had payroll was like $700,000. Came back, made payroll. The ad went out, and it was an instant success. It was an instant success. Now, a sidebar to that story, before they ran out of their money, he was the trustee of his 2 younger sisters' trust. Fred Smith comes from a wealthy family. He's trustee of his 2 younger sisters' trust. He stole the money from his trust, breaking his fiduciary. Now you can probably relate to this. Breaking his fiduciary responsibility.
I can explain the legal concept, yes.
Yes. Okay. Breaking his fiduciary responsibility to his sisters to meet payroll before he did this thing about the going to Las Vegas. His sisters sued him for a lot of money. And by the time it got to court, their stock in Federal Express was worth $240 million. And the judge threw it out of court. You have no damages. What damages? They took $3 million and you got $240 million. They threw it out of court. Fred Smith, to the best of my knowledge, is still CEO of Federal Express, which is now Federal Express Kinko. But when guys like I or guys like Mr. Smith say they'll do whatever it takes, that's exactly what we mean. Do whatever it takes. You have to have a little luck with the saying that the guys came up with, when you need it absolutely overnight, Federal Express. 4 packages, $55 million. That's why a third of the businesses go bankrupt, a third of them break even, and a third of them make money, and you hope that a third of them wind up to be like a Apple computer or Federal Express. There's no reason anyone would want a computer in his home. Ken Olsen, chairman and founder of Digital. Now, this has been more recent. I couldn't find them on the computer the last few days, but these were pretty funny. The headline writers keep blowing hot and cold. Oat bran reduced cholesterol. Oat bran does not reduce cholesterol. Coffee can cause pancreatic cancer. Coffee does not cause pancreatic cancer. Harvard Medical has just reversed itself about what? You name it. Salt, 1950, salt causes hypertension. 1960, salt does not cause hypertension. 1970, salt causes hypertension. 1980, salt relieves hypertension. 1998, the AMA, that's American Medical Association Journal, evaluates 114 separate studies and concludes that salt does not affect hypertension either way. And they just, Harvard Medical Journal, or the American Medical Association, I forget which, just announced that eating vegetables does not promote good health. Does not promote good health. My father, God rest his soul, he told me many years ago, when they first started to do feminine products on television, he says, someday, to show you the state of the world, how it's fucked, son, someday they're going to talk about feminine hygiene products on television. Feminine hygiene. The first time that happened, about 25 years ago, I called him up and said, hey, Dad, where are you? He says, I forget where he was. Well, what you said came true. I said, and he said, well, what thing? I said, if you live long enough, son, I mean, everything comes true. And I says, they just got feminine hygiene products on television. He says, it's going to get worse. They're going to show you how to douche on TV pretty soon. As God is my witness, about 10 years later, same fucking thing. Then he says, they're going to show you how to put he didn't know what a tampon was. He said, they're going to show you how to put a Kotex on. And don't they not have those kind of goddamn commercials? Of course they do. It's unbelievable. If you live long enough, you know, and I've had women in here when we talk about this stuff, and I said, well, I mean, why is that necessary? Now, the one thing that they haven't showed on TV is how to put a condom on. But what maybe not on German TV, no. But I want them to have a little 5-foot-tall girl put a condom on with her lips. And I hope this gets on fucking YouTube. Bill Gates, in his infinite wisdom, almost 30 years ago, $640K ought to be enough for anybody. Now, how wrong is that?
That's very right, because he made an operating system that needs so much.
Well, he made a system that needs. But I mean, how big in the laptop there? How much operating system were in the little thing now?
4 gigabytes.
And how much is 4 gigabytes compared to 640K?
4,000 times more.
10,000 times more.
10,000? Yes, 10,000.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah.
So even Bill. Now, Impaler, do you have any words of wisdom? No words. Wow, shit.
That's what Impaler said. $640,000 is enough for everybody.
Yeah, that's okay. The common idea that success spoils people by making them vain, egotistical, and self-complacent is erroneous. On the contrary, it makes them, for the most part, humble, tolerant, and kind. Failure makes people cruel and bitter. I agree. I couldn't agree with that more. It's the failure that makes us cruel and bitter. And you guys aren't old enough to be cruel and bitter yet. But if you don't get a lot more success, you'll be fucking cruel and bitter by the time you're my age, I assure you. Don't rule out big banks when raising cash. They provide half of all small business loans in the U.S. They even provide more than half now, because this is about 5 years old. Do business plans matter? Remember, we're going beyond common sense. I've said this for 25 years, maybe longer. And I've already told you why I think business plans are for shit, because they're just a wild ass guess. Bro Crump, listen to this, honey, I'm talking about you. Bro Crump, in 1997 or 1998, 99, went down to Florida. Jacksonville, Florida is the home of 100 insurance companies. And our headquarters at SDI, Ronald LeGrand, was just across the river. I think the St. Johns River. Maybe St. Joseph River, I forget what river. Anyway. And I used to tell my guys, Sean Casey, Ron LeGrand, Ray Rock, all these smart guys, why don't we go to the insurance companies to make a presentation? We need money. They know we listen. Okay. Bro comes down from Ontario, Canada. She makes a pitch to an insurance company on a tablecloth like this, writing with a big thick pen. Raises $55 million. On a fucking tablecloth. I tell my boys, the LeGrand boys, Burl the Thumper went down there across the river that we can see from our offices and raised $55 million on a fucking tablecloth while you're sitting here jerking each other off. And of course, like the Impaler, they had a lot of excuses. Well, it's always easier to raise money from a foreign country. Well, it's a woman. Here's a 300-pound woman. It's a woman. She uses her sex to get the 55 million. And they went on and on and on and on as they're holding their little dicks in their hand. And with Tom Winkler, when we talk about Tom, He made 2,500 calls on banks, and he didn't have any business plan either. And when we'll talk about that tomorrow. Domino's Pizza, the guy did Domino's Pizza. There's a lot of people that have a business plan. But it talks about how nobody reads them, like we talked about. Junior guys read them, guys that make decisions. A lot of them don't even get read by anybody.